Yo, what's up everyone? Um, this is another video, and this time I'm going to be talking about my first ever ayahuasca experience. Um, I'm rather excited to talk about this. It's a very interesting subject, and there is also a lot to unpack. So, the place that I'm in, actually, the place that I'm at, is the park that I recorded the last video. I just love being in this place. Something about the energy here is really interesting to me. If I keep looking to the wrong corner, is that I'm looking at myself on the screen, so that's why I keep looking to the wrong place instead of the camera. I'll try looking at the camera though. Anyway, so long story short, last Saturday was I went to a ceremony with ayahuasca in a house not very far from where I live. Here we call it a house. It's like the place where you do the ceremony. It's the name that the community gives. It's it's a big place where a bunch of people go to and perform the ceremony. Um, I've already recorded a video before talking about giving up on the first, what would have been my first experience, because I didn't trust the guy that much. This place instead was much better. It had a much more good vibe. And if there's one thing that people who use, ayahuasca really say, is you should go to a place where you trust. And that place was something that I really trusted. I really felt very comfortable at. And I mean, not that I had been before, but I felt good energy. That's the best way I can describe. Were it not for that, I probably wouldn't have gone. So I was 1 week prior, I contacted them. I paid for the ceremony, and I started about 4 days prior to the ceremony. I started to do the diet. The diet was already part of, some people say it's already part of the ritual, because you're giving up, you're sacrificing something. Because the diet is kind of restrictive. You can't eat meat, you can't eat anything that's very fatty, no snacks, no candy, no, just straight up cooked stuff and boiled stuff, and fruits. And I also cut caffeine because I am a caffeine addict. I drink coffee every day. And so for me, the diet was a bit too restrictive, but it wasn't especially hard. It was relatively, very easy on my organism, I guess. I didn't feel hungry or anything. I was very excited for this experience. So before Saturday, I was already just very excited in general. So come Saturday, I prepare my things, I pack my stuff, and I leave, feeling just, I wasn't as scared as I was with the first guy. So let's cut straight to the stuff. Okay. So I get there. It's about evening. They ask us to bring food because we will share food at the end of the ceremony. So I had to go to a store to buy something. Luckily, there was one near the place we were staying. The place we were staying is a spiritual retreat, so they perform lots of spiritual stuff in there. It's a big warehouse-like structure, and they have lots of religious items inside. I noticed some Buddhist stuff, some indigenous stuff, even some Catholic and some African stuff as well. Because here, for those who are not watching from Brazil, here in Brazil, we have a lot of African traditions as well. So from the start, I start to feel a bit anxious because I went alone. I didn't go with a friend, and it was my first time going. They asked me straight up to put my phone inside of my bag, go put my bag in a place where they're going to put all the bags, and they asked me to sign a paper. Now, this is where I start to get very scared because I knew nothing would go wrong, but in case something went wrong, I was just screwed. And I was now signing a paper that waived away any rights, I guess, of me. Like, if I go crazy, like, it's on me, you know. Anyway, so it starts to fill up. So lots of people start coming in. I notice, for much to my surprise, quite a variety of people. Old people. I saw like really old people. I saw mostly middle-aged. I saw some teenagers. I saw people of all genders. They're like just varied. I thought it was going to be a very specific audience, but it wasn't. It was just people from all over. And when I sit down with my stuff, so we're only allowed to sit on the mat with our bottle of water. And as I sit there, the owner of the retreat comes. It's a man. It's a couple, actually. It's a man and a woman who own the place. And the man starts to give us a lecture about ayahuasca. So he calls in all the people who are going for the first time, or who are going there in that place specifically for the first time. And he gathers us at the center of the room to start giving us the lecture about what is going to happen, what the risks are, or whatever. And when he starts talking, I already begin to feel easy. I ease up a lot. And then he talks about what will happen. He doesn't give a very detailed explanation because there is no way to give a very detailed explanation. He just says, y'all are going to experience consciousness expansion. And I'm like, okay, what the fuck is this? He describes it as when, like, if you imagine your brain, if you imagine your mind is a room, that room is always dark, and you can only see around a very small light bulb, let's say. Consciousness expansion would be taking that light bulb and increasing its luminosity so you can see more of the room. All the stuff that you see are stuff that are already in your mind, but you just can't see it. And that's how he described consciousness expansion. This will be important for later, but during this lecture, there was a girl who was from, I don't know where she was from. All I know is she didn't speak Portuguese. She was speaking in Spanish, but she could understand Portuguese well. The guy asked her if he could speak in Portuguese or if she needed a translator, to which she replied no. This is going to be relevant soon. Anyway, so he gives us the lecture. We go back to our places, and then the woman comes in and starts giving a lecture as well, but for everyone this time. In this place that I went to, the ceremony is performed with a purpose. It's not, for example, you just go and you just take ayahuasca. They do like a themed ritual. In our case, the theme was purpose. It was the ritual of purpose. Right from the get-go, I knew that shit was for me. Now, I will need to explain that I'm not a very spiritual person. I consider myself agnostic / atheist. I don't believe necessarily in a God in a religious sense, nor do I follow any religion specifically. But something inside of me was telling me, yo, this is going to be like, if I'm ever to go to a ceremony, this is the ceremony I have to go to. Perhaps I'll learn something more about myself. My purpose with the ritual has always been of learning more about myself. And that was the place where I realized, yeah, this is it. If anything, nothing's gonna happen. Like worst case scenario, nothing happens. I was already sort of preparing that. I was trying to curb my anxiety and fear of what would happen, because I knew that if I had a lot of fear, my experience would most likely be bad. So worst case scenario for me, nothing would happen. I would just pay $130 for nothing. Anyway, so the woman finishes her speech, and they explain to us how the ritual is going to be performed. So we take 3 doses. The first dose is mandatory, everybody takes. They close off the door, they lock the gate, so we can't leave, because you just can't leave. It's 4 hours and a half of ritual from beginning to end, and during this you can't leave, and you can't leave if you're not able to walk or stuff, obviously. So they lock the place, and they explain to us that everybody there needs to take the first dose, but the other doses are optional. And they say that the first dose, most definitely you won't feel much. Only after about 40 minutes or more you're going to start feeling the effects. But for most people you wouldn't feel much, but you would definitely feel after the second dose. And I'm like, okay, preparing already. So we make a prayer. So everybody gathers around, close our eyes, we do a prayer. They pray, much to my surprise, they pray Ave Maria, which is, for those who are Catholic, it's a prayer to Maria, to this Mother of Jesus. Then we pray. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know how to pray that. I just close my eyes and focus. Then we pray Our Father. So that one I definitely know. And then they prayed another prayer, which everybody seemed to know, but I never heard it before. It seemed to be a prayer specifically dedicated to the ayahuasca. And then there was a 4th prayer, I think, where it was like sort of made for this specific ritual, and so they say the lines and we repeat. And after that, the tea has been blessed, and they start serving us. So they hand us a little cup like this, a coffee cup this size. They fill it, and we have to wait until everybody has theirs. And then we do another prayer, or the 4th prayer that I mentioned we did here in this moment. Close our eyes and bless the ayahuasca. Now the ayahuasca, I had heard multiple reports of what it was, but I wasn't really prepared to see it. I think I'm not prepared, but I don't know. I didn't know what to expect in person. It was just a regular brownish black liquid. It didn't look anything. A lot of people describe it as looking abnormal. Like, it just looked like a normal black liquid. And the most anticipated moment happens. They ask us to drink it. And so I have this little cup right here, and I go in, I swallow it. They also handed us a handful of apples, like of apple slices, because they said that the taste might be terrible, and so we would need to get rid of the taste. We could eat the apple. I didn't particularly think the taste was bad. It was weird. It was like drinking, I don't know, like drinking any remedy for anything as a kid. Didn't taste particularly awful, but it didn't taste good either. It kind of tasted sweet to my surprise. A lot of people said it was sour. I mean, not sour, but like very bitter. It was kind of bitter, but kind of sweet. I don't know how to describe. And it was very thick. Definitely not a tea or a coffee. It was very, very thick. So I drink it, I swallow it, and just so I don't have to hold the apples, I eat them as well. And after that, they ask us to close our eyes and sit, and not to lie down yet, because they are going to pass by blessing us. So this place performs the shamanic form of the ritual. There are other types of rituals. There's one that is more Christian, but they were doing the shamanic version. So they pass by. I have my eyes closed, so I didn't know what to expect, but I started to get scared when I heard everybody was coughing and sneezing, and I was like, okay, what is going on? And until the woman passed by me with a smoke, that's where I do, okay, so there, it's the smoke. It was a very strong smell, very, very strong. I didn't even know, like it took over me, and I didn't know what to, because I never went to a ritual like that, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was very strong. And then they pass over a few times, spraying some liquid, like some perfume, which is also very strong. And people are sneezing, people are coughing. I don't sneeze, I don't cough, I just sit there, eyes closed, and I start to meditate. And then they began playing the music. So throughout the whole ritual, there was music playing very loud, and most of them were very religious and shamanic songs. So I sit there, a bit of the layout of the place too. So I forgot to mention, but in the center of the room, there's a fire. It's like a pot and some fire. They turn off the lights, and we are illuminated by a few lights, like a few colored lights, and the fire. The fire is the brightest light source. The place quickly fills up with smoke, so it's very smoky, very just covered in smoke. And this is also important to mention, but besides the two owners of the place, which are the people responsible for the ceremony, there is a group of helpers going around. They are about 14 helpers divided into men and women. And they explained to us that during the ceremony, if we needed anything, if we needed water, or if we needed another bag to vomit, or paper, we could raise our hands and they would come. But if we needed specific help, for example, getting up or going to the bathroom, but you can't walk, they explained to us that the women will only help the women physically, and the men will only help the men, because there's something to do with the energy and stuff. And I'm like, okay. So they, start performing the ritual, and I'm just there sitting, meditating, focusing, until I begin to rock forth and back like this. During the meditation, this happens sometimes when I'm meditating, especially when I'm meditating to music. When I really begin to focus on my breathing, I begin to rock back and forth in a very uncontrollable way. But during this, it was beginning to get very intense, to the point where I began to feel that my body was swinging back and forth to the song. This was already the sign that I was getting into the effects. So about 30 minutes in, I'm just beginning to feel a bit weird over my body. And I'm rocking back and forth so strong that I begin to feel that I need to lie down. When I felt that, it was this very strong urge of, you have to lie down now. And so I did. Boy, oh boy, that was that was when the shit started to get serious. When I lie down, immediately I began to feel as if my body is just strange. My body begins to feel different. And I wasn't prepared because I thought that this stuff was only going to affect my mind, right? My consciousness, and not my whole body. And as I lie down, I began to feel very strong symptoms of anxiety. So I began to sweat. I began to shake a little bit. And when I feel anxiety, sometimes I feel like my body is losing sensation. And that's what started to happen. My body began to lose sensation. Now, when this happened, I began to get very afraid. I looked around, I opened my eyes, and I tried to ground myself because I was like, okay, I don't want to lose control. But then I began to feel very different in every single sense of every single thing I could sense: vision, hearing, my whole consciousness. I began to feel very, very weird. And every time I closed my eyes, I felt as if my body was disappearing. It got to a point where every time I stopped moving, my body began to disappear, until I began to move again, because I started to move around like crazy because I didn't want to disappear. But there was no way around this. It had to happen. So I just say, okay, in an act of bravery, I closed my eyes and I just lay there. And when this happened, I began to feel as if my body was melting. It started to melt all around me, and I was beginning to feel as if I was becoming the ground. And during this, the song is playing, like the music is playing. They're playing some forest music. And so I began to imagine a forest to feel better, like I was facing up. So I began to imagine I was looking down from a tree, looking up to the treetops. And as this was going on, my body becomes to vibrate really strong. And it vibrates in a very specific pattern. It's really weird to describe, but it felt as if it was vibrating to the shape of angular lines, if that makes sense. A lot of this will not make sense, by the way, so be accustomed already. As that begins to happen, I start to see the patterns that people who usually trip on stuff like this see. And as I when I began to see this is where the trip got really, really scary. I began to feel as if my consciousness was literally expanding. Like, I remember the explanation I gave before where the guide told us what consciousness expansion was? For me, it literally felt as if everything was just warping to the speed of light to the infinite. My notion of space began to just explode, and that's where I started to think, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, there's no going back now, is it? There was this moment where I realized that I was beyond my body. And this is where it began to get really scary, because I began to feel myself dying in a way, but not dying in a physical way, dying in a completely different fucking way. It's so hard to describe. I was looking at these shapes, but I wasn't me anymore. I started to get very confused about the sense of time, because in this state I realized that what I was seeing was eternity. It was the raw and pure meaning of eternity, of atemporal existence. And that shit is something that has always scared me. Eternity is something that has always deeply scared me. And in that moment, I saw what eternity was. And during this, the song that is playing around me, I remember is this very strong shamanic song. It's like a man singing, and he's singing in this very, you know, native language. And I began to feel as if, how can I describe this? I began to feel as if I was seeing things I was not meant to see, and at the same time that everything that I was seeing was always there. And I begin to realize that I am beyond everything, beyond the universe, beyond this life, beyond myself. I am beyond everything, and I am seeing true existence. The shapes around me start to dance with very dark colors, purple, very strong purple, very strong dark blue, very black all over the place, and lines everywhere. And I began to feel as if I was becoming the universe. And this experience started to rip apart everything that made sense. I could no longer tell the time. I could no longer tell whether I was in the future, whether I was in the past, whether I was in the present. It felt as if I was living in a dream my whole life, and I woke up. And I remember feeling that all the events of my life only happened to lead me to that moment. I couldn't anymore tell whether what was happening to me was because of the ayahuasca, or if that was just the natural existence. And that's where it really fucking terrified me. Because I wanted to stop, I wanted to go away, I wanted to get back, but I couldn't anymore. And it felt as if that was it. And if I returned to my life, I would just be returning to the illusion. So I began to dissipate. I began to forget who I am. Everything that I thought about who I am just melted with my body, with everything that I was. And all there was this convoluted existence where nothing made sense, yet everything was as clear as anything in life could ever be. I told my friend yesterday something that I remembered about this part, and that was I felt as if I realized that my life was like a movie. And all the people I know, all the things that I love, everything was just part of that movie. All the characters, the people that I love are just characters. The things that I love, the passions, everything was just part of the script. And in that moment, I realized that I was the Netflix catalog. Like, my life had been just a movie, and I was now scrolling through the catalog of Netflix or whatever streaming service. And that is where I began to feel again terrified. So it's interesting. Every time I felt terrified was when I began to desire to return, because I thought, okay, I can't take this anymore. I can't face this anymore. I want to return. I don't want this to be reality, but this is reality. There's nothing I can do about this. I want to go back to my life. I want to go back to who I am. Every time I thought of that, I began to feel anxiety again. Throughout the whole of this section, I was thinking about my mom. I was thinking about my brother specifically, because my brother is a very scaredy idiot. He was trying to convince me not to go, and I was like, man, I can't leave them. In that moment, it felt like I just left everything. I can't leave them. I have to return. I want to return. But the more that I tried to do this, the more that I thought of this, the more I suffered, the more I was terrified. So I began to give up. Every time I think of this, I sit down and I give up. And I let the music guide me and the shapes guide me. Some moment into the ceremony, the realization hits that all my worries that I had were just irrelevant. So I began to think about money, for example, and I was like, man, how much money do I have in my bank account? Did I bring my phone? You know, am I afraid of being robbed? Because that's something I'm always afraid of. I'm very paranoid of being robbed, very paranoid of getting my stuff stolen, getting my money stolen. And I'm like, dude, how much money do I have? I couldn't remember. I couldn't recall it. I was like, it doesn't fucking matter. I began to remember all the anxieties I had, the anxieties at home, work related, my relationships, you know, the problems I have in some relationships. And I was like, bro, this is so fucking everything disappeared, everything melted away, and I was trying to recall like this completely irrelevant discussion I had with a person. And I began to feel, I began to realize that my life was, this movie, and all the things that I was afraid of, all the experiences, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the problems, everything was just part of that movie. None of it fucking mattered. So I'm sitting there, I'm lying down. Sometime during the ceremony, this is one of the things that happened that I can't explain. I open my eyes, like I keep opening my eyes every once in a while, and during this phase, being with eyes closed and being with eyes open didn't make any fucking difference anymore. But during this, sometime during this, the woman, the owner of the place, she comes to me, looks me in the eye, and smiles and holds my hands. And I remember her face being very bright. And then she just leaves. And I go back. And I'm like, okay. I don't know if this actually happened. I don't know if she actually went there and did this. I didn't ask her in the end. I forgot. But this helped me to feel taken care of. And when I finally let go of the control, this is where I began to experience this overwhelming sensation of flow. I was flowing with the music. I was flowing with the visions. I was flowing with everything. I no longer cared anymore to return. If I didn't return, if I forgot who I was, I didn't care. I just I just let go. And when I let go, the there was this sense that took over me that I was being taken care of. And I start to feel like I start to feel people touching me, touching my body, and I felt to myself and I thought to myself like, okay, this is the cure that's happening, that's taking place. I'm being taken care of. I need not be afraid. I'm being taken care of. Everything is going to be all right. This is necessary. And I feel this feeling of ancestral connection to the spirits of the forest. And of course, the music is helping a lot because it's this very shamanic music. I feel connected. I feel as if I returned to the matrix, to the place where everything always has been, but I always thought wasn't there, if that makes sense. It felt as if I returned home. And I was feeling this sensation of love. I start to love everything. I start to love everyone. I begin to feel, and the song changes to that of a woman singing. And I can't understand what she's saying. It sounds to me like she's speaking in a very non existent language, yet she speaks a word that means love over and over. And I begin to feel loved. And I begin to feel like I am love. No longer do I feel like I'm receiving love. I feel as if I am love itself. And I had become one with the universe. And at this point, I start to feel that the whole universe is love. I open my eyes once again and I look to my side and I see the people around me. And I'm like, I feel love. I feel love for everybody. There is no longer any boundary that separates me from another person. Everything is connected. I start to feel a very motherly figure. And I start to see the presence of my mother from this life in the shapes. Now the shapes have changed colors. Once they were very dark and dreary, now they're bright, they're yellow, they're green. And I start to feel her, and I start to feel love, and I start to feel the music and the words. And I remember that at this point, I was like, okay, what language is this woman speaking? I don't know. It doesn't matter because everybody can understand it. During this moment, I felt as if what she was saying was just everybody could understand. And I remembered the girl from before, the girl who spoke Spanish. And in this state, I thought to myself, well, she can also understand this. You know, the language barriers no longer existed. The physical barriers no longer existed. No barriers existed whatsoever. Everything was one thing, one connected thing. And that thing was love. And that thing was love. I started to hear, because I was lying next to a window, I heard the vehicles passing by across the street and making very loud noises. Usually this makes me a bit angry, but at that moment I didn't feel anger. I felt love towards everybody. I remembered all the people I had seen that day and I felt love towards them. I remember my family members, again, my friends, everybody, and I started to feel love for them. I remembered I felt very lonely. Loneliness is something I struggle a lot. I felt as if nobody cared for me, as if I had no friends. And I started to remember in that moment the people that I had met, even the strangers that I had met. And I just felt love for all of them. And I thought to myself, wow, it's so pointless. this loneliness thing. It's so like, wow, I'm not lonely. Look at all those people that I've met. Look at all this love that exists. It doesn't matter anymore what my worries were in this life. None of it mattered. I was seeing home. I was seeing love. It was the definition of unconditional love. Not like what religious people say, because religious people say unconditional love, but they just have a set of conditions for you to be loved. I felt true unconditional love in that moment, because there was no condition whatsoever. There was no limit. There was nothing. All we always clinged to, everything we ever clinged to, everything I clinged to, it was all an illusion. And in that moment, I was seeing reality itself. It only happened because I allowed myself to let go of control. Now, during this ceremony, I no longer had control of my body, by the way. So, but whenever I began to feel very thirsty, my body, like this was a bit scary, but my body moved itself. I was no longer in control of anything. I opened the bottle, I took it to my mouth, I drank it, I closed it, and I kept repeating this motion over and over and over again in a loop. Everything was looping around me. All the sounds were looping. The same people coughing and puking around me, making these very loud noises. They kept repeating it eternally. The people outside walking on their cars, walking, on their bicycles. I mean, their bikes, making noise. All the sounds, everything was looping, and my emotions were looping. I began to drink the water. I had no control of my body whatsoever. It was doing it by itself. It felt as if I didn't have any free will. I had no agency whatsoever. I had nothing. Nothing was real. Nothing mattered. It was all happening by itself. And when I finally let go of that control, I began to feel and see and hear what was really on the other side, which was, again, what's love. There was the moment in the ceremony where the song just hit a very drum roll kind of thing, and when the drums began to roll, I got back to my body. It felt as if I was thrown into my body again, and I opened my eyes. I was still in the effects. I was still hyper aware of everything, but I was back at my body. I realized, okay, this is my body. This is who I am. The thoughts started to recollect themselves, and I slowly began piecing together who I was. I started to remember what languages I spoke: Portuguese, English. I started to remember why I was there. I started to remember when I got there. I started to remember who I was. I started to remember my family members. Because in the forest, I saw everybody just disappearing. All the faces of the people I love just disappearing. And now they were coming back. I was like, okay, this is really interesting. At one point, I drank all my water, and when I looked at my water bottle, it was there, and it was filled again to the top. I didn't ask anybody to fill it. Somebody just went and filled. My cup was no longer there, because they told us that they would, like when they asked us for the second dose, they would ask us to sit and to confirm that they would, if they could fill again and bring us the second dose. I was sitting, but when I looked, my glass was no longer there. I started to feel around me. I started to touch everything around me, to feel my things, to feel back into this reality, to know, okay, I'm back. Like, I am still in this reality, but I wasn't completely back yet. But I knew that reality was still there. It didn't go away. And that grounded me, and that made me feel very happy again, you know. And after this, I began to feel as if everything was fitting into place. I no longer had control of my body, yet I was drinking the water that I was needing because I was very thirsty. I My water bottle was full again, so I could drink again. My Like everything was working without me, but it was working where how it should be. Everything started to feel that every little detail in the universe was fitting perfectly into place. And at one moment during this experience, I also began to realize that all the potential to do anything I wanted was inside of me. But it wasn't just all the potential to do the things I need, it was infinite potential. I remembered my projects and I thought, well, what was I so afraid? What was I so scared of? I can do that. I mean, in that state, beyond everything, I realized I had already done it in this life. My dreams. I have a dream of making a video game and having it, released, and hopefully people will play it. Uh, it's a very hard thing to do, especially by yourself. And at that moment, I realized, why was I so afraid of in that life? I had already done it. My comics, my stories, everything I always wanted to do. Why was I so afraid? Why was I so doubtful? Everything has already been done. There is infinite potential inside of me to do anything that I set out to do in this life. Infinite potential, because that potential is beyond me. Is beyond this ego, this what I think of myself. And as I come back to reality, I began to remember all the rules that they told us. So, for example, they had rules how to go to the bathroom, rules not to look at people directly, rules that women wouldn't touch men, that kind of stuff. And I began to realize that, well, those rules who limit me are sort of, they don't have to limit me, Yet everything was fitting perfectly into place. I remembered going to the bathroom. I wasn't fully in control of my body, but I could walk. I could feel everything. And it was just, everything was fitting perfectly. Because I was like, what if I fall down? What if this happens? What if that happens? No, I just went. I began to realize that there is a plan. Behind every single motion, there is like a calculated plan. And I always felt very afraid of giving up, giving in to that plan, letting go of agency in life, and just letting this plan, letting this, whatever it is, take over. But it was only by allowing it to take over that I could finally feel the love and the energy and the peace and the cure. So the rest of the ceremony, I didn't drink the other doses. Just the first dose, the one dose I took, was enough to give me all this experience. I can't really describe what happened, what the real experience was. With this that I just did right now is a very, very limited explanation. What I truly felt over there was truly unexplainable. No words can describe. But I can definitely see that there is so much I can extract out of that experience. One of that was the realization that I need to love the people, because there's just love. Love is everywhere, is everything, is the core reality of this existence. I mean, not this existence, of all existence, of anything that can exist, of what truly is beyond everything that we don't see because we're blinded by ego. Love is that root. And sometimes it can be scary, but it is only scary because we cling to our egos and we don't want to die and we don't want to leave it behind. And I realized, man, I need to just tell people I love them. I was afraid. There's a guy that we're dating now, and I was really scared of screwing up with him and being rejected. And I was like, man, like all the potential to love this person is already inside of me. Why am I so scared? I felt his presence. I felt my mom's presence. I felt everybody's presence. You know, the people that I was so scared of losing, the people I was so scared of disappointing, I felt their presence. And the only thing that there was love. And it was truly inexplainable. I can definitely say that what I saw over there was something that I wasn't prepared to see mentally. But now I realize that it is allowing things to fall into place in my life. I wouldn't consider that I definitely didn't become religious. But one moment in the ceremony I realized that what I was seeing was truly inexplainable. And I began to think, is this God? Is this Jesus? Am I Christian now? Am I atheist now? And I remembered, oh yeah, it doesn't matter, because all those labels are just labels. They're nothing. They have no weight. Whatever I'm seeing, I'm just seeing. So there definitely feels to me as if there is way more to this, to the universe, to the whole thing. There's way more. And the realization that I was being taken care of over there, and that I was being loved, and I felt true unconditional love, that's something that most likely will have a large impact on my life. I forgot to mention a lot of things during this, to which I say I'm sorry. I've been rehearsing this video in my mind for a week now, ever since the experience happened. I can't contain everything that happened to me in this. I now forgot a lot of things, and I can't express truly to the level that I wanted to what truly happened over there. But I can definitely say that it was it was a perspective altering experience. It wasn't life altering because for it to be life altering, I have to put in the work. But it definitely was perspective altering. I saw everything, and that was both the most scary experience of my life and the most beautiful experience of my life. I am now fully convinced that there's way more to this than just what our ego tells us. And definitely that I will be investing in myself, because I realize that all the potential to do anything is already inside of me. So my dreams, my projects, I will work on that. I will work on loving people more, being more compassionate. Because now that I'm back to this life, back to this reality, I am back to being just a human being. I have my desires, I have my, problems. And if I wanted to break free, I have to put in work. And I will never truly in this life be free, truly free. I will be always tempted, I will always be a mortal, but I will keep working. I'm also about death. I don't know what to think. Right now I'm starting to get convinced of reincarnation, or not just reincarnation, but like that our spirit, our life is nothing. That's something that shocked me, but also humbled me to realize that it's nothing. It's irrelevant. It's an illusion. Now, whether that's something that it used to be scary and now it's more, I'm at peace with that. The realization that this is just an illusion. But while we're at it for a purpose. The last part of the ceremony was the speech, and they give us a speech about purpose. There was this part where there was a guy talking in one of the songs, and he's talking about purpose, and he describes God in a way as a father who sends us to this earth, and he doesn't tell us what we're supposed to do, but we gotta find that ourselves. So if you raise a kid, for example, you're raising your kid and you tell him, look, you're here for something, you're here for a purpose, but you'll have to find out that yourself. And that's something that's really hit me, because when I got back, I realized, well, I am me again. But this me isn't, again, it's not reality. This me, this Wesley, this person who I am, what I came here to do, I already know what it is. It's my projects, it's my passions. I can help people with those. I can bring emotion with those. I can bring meaning, with those. And I realized that, that was my purpose. I already knew that. But what I didn't know was that the potential to achieve all those things was already inside of me. I started to see things clearly, that all my dreams are possibilities, but they will only happen if I believe myself and I believe the plan, the grand plan, I guess. So I guess, yeah, I am more spiritual now. I am more in tune. I was debating myself on whether I want to go more times. Initially, I was like, no way I'm going again, because the initial experience was so scary. But the more I think about this experience, and the more I remember, and the more I process, the more I realize that I have to return, that I have to learn more. There is a thirst inside of me of I have to learn more, and even though it is scary, it is also beautiful. So I've been I have to cut this short. Unfortunately, I didn't tell everything I wanted to tell, but I can definitely guarantee that this experience was way more than I could have hoped for. It was way more. So thank you for watching. If I go again, I might record again. This was my first experience with ayahuasca, and if you are wondering whether I would recommend, if you've never taken it and you're wondering if I would recommend, initially I would say no, because what you'll see will shatter your perspective of everything, and that can be really scary. But at the same time, the potential for the cure will only take place if you allow yourself to go through that. Many people who take this claim that their lives have changed. A lot of people who are addicts or stuff like that take this and they're like, their lives are fixed. I mean, not fixed, but their lives completely change. Because it won't fix your life. It will fix you. It will allow you to peek into yourself. And that is where you're going to receive better understanding of how to improve your life, how to fix your life. So you have to put up the work. So I would recommend. Now, if you ask me now, I would recommend. It's definitely a very great experience. It's a very great experience, and I would definitely recommend. But definitely pick a safe place. By the way, part of the reason why I'll be returning is because in that place I felt that everything, like the guides, the helpers, they became spiritual guides in that moment, and they were literally guiding us in the spirit realm. It was just beautiful. I thanked a few of them after the service, but I would definitely be returning there. Don't do this by yourself. By the way, this is a sacred medicine. If you only decide to take this as a drug, you're going to screw up. Don't do it. Anyway, thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time.